this is a Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. We have Siti Muga Nduoko and Dr. Mercy Korir, KTN's medical journalist. We're now going to talk on the phone with Edward Mwachinga. He's a partner at Viva Africa Consulting, a leading tax advisory firm in Nairobi, looking at the measures that were announced yesterday by the president. This is after such a huge clamor from all sectors, the private sector, the business community, citizens saying the government ought to do something to cushion us from what we are going to experience with this coronavirus pandemic. Good morning, Edward.
Morning, Eric. How are you?
We're fine, thank you. Asante sana for joining us.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
Now, you heard what the president announced yesterday, raft of measures, tax relief for Kenyans earning 24,000 and below, payee reduced from 30% to 25%, income tax reduced from 30% to 25%, turnover tax also reduced, temporary suspension of blacklisting of defaulters on CRB, VAT reduction from 16% to 14%, all those plus what the CBK had announced earlier, the measures that the CBK had announced with the banking sector. 10 billion shillings extra earmarked for the elderly, the orphans, and the vulnerable through cash transfers. What do you think of this generally?
I think that, first of all, I'm with those who say that there's a ray of hope. Because I think the growing consensus from all those who are clamoring for this and that was that the way to save the economy or to cushion the economy a little bit is to inject some liquidity into the economy quickly. And I think the government weighed all the options that were on the table, including, those who are saying give everybody 10,000 shillings and so on, and decided that the tax tools at their disposal are quite an efficient way of doing this. So the theory is that you inject this money into the economy so that you at least avert the shutdown of the economy or locking down businesses, or if you don't avert, you can at least delay. So when you look at these tax measures, you have to look at them from that lens and say, how are they, if implemented, and you have to assume that they can be implemented quickly, how are they going to achieve this? So when I look at if I go down some of the measures that have been made, and I'll start with the one that everybody is talking about, tax relief for people who are earning less than 24,000 shillings. So you have to start here with an assumption that these people are staying at work. And I'll come to how the government is using these measures to keep these people at work. So if you assume that these people stay at work, they will have an extra 1,500 shillings at the end of April, which they would have paid in tax that they don't pay. Now, when I look at the numbers of how many people are employed in formal sector, you could say that there's about 2 million people in the formal sector who are in this category, earning 24,000 and below. These are your cleaners, watchmen, those kind of people. So 2 million people, 1,500 shillings, 3 billion shillings injected into the economy in the month of April. These people, how are they going to behave when they get that money? They're going to buy. I was shopping for some, doing the Kenyan thing of stocking up. And I bought a bale of unga the other day. I think it was about 1,300 shillings. So that 1,500 can get this person a bale of unga, which can push them perhaps 12 more days from the date which they may be put out of work. So I said that we are assuming that these people are staying employed. Now, how is the government using these tools to keep these people employed? And so now I go to the one that excites me. The VAT refund, 10 billion shillings worth of VAT refunds injected in the economy in the next 3 weeks. Assuming the government can do this, and I think they can, KRA can be very efficient if they
choose to.
If they purpose to,
Yeah.
they can be very efficient. So now the government comes and says they'll give 10 billion shillings of VAT funds in the next 3 weeks. If they manage to do this, today is 25th of
March.
26th. We are looking at mid-April. There's a flood of 10 billion shillings in the economy. If they target it well, they'll be looking at those businesses like flower farms, the ones that really struggle.
Yeah.
The flower farms, the small manufacturers, and etc. Some of these have already taken their staff on unpaid leave.
Yes.
But these 10 billion shillings, when they get it, the way they are likely to behave is perhaps pay their staff one salary and pay their suppliers, the little people who do printing and so on.
Yeah.
So then, so you can see how the thinking is. So give 10 billion to these people, they'll give it to the workers.
They'll pay
Then
their
the
own
workers will
suppliers.
have an extra, and they pay their own suppliers. So and I heard you say in the morning that there's a group that's been forgotten, the SMEs and so on.
Yeah.
This is how they get reached. So the 10 billion goes to the flower farms. The flower farms pay their suppliers. They pay their staff who are on unpaid leave 1 month salary. They've moved us a month further. They've kicked the can down the road. So that is that's VAT refund. If you come to the corporate tax and income tax reduction, this one may be a little bit more longer term.
Yeah.
But it can have also an immediate effect in this way.
Yeah.
Corporates, especially those who have a December year end, pay installment taxes on the 20th of April. And they pay the balance of taxes for the previous year on the 30th of April. Yesterday, I was having a discussion with a group of 4 mid-sized sort of business people. And the questions they were putting to me were around delaying or not paying their installment taxes in favor of paying salaries for their workers, or cutting salaries in April
So they can
so
pay
that
the
they can
tax
have
money.
the liquidity to pay the tax.
Yeah.
So what this does is that because you estimate your taxes based on what you paid last year or the current year. If you had estimated to pay X amount, and now you're estimating based on a 5% lower, you're having a saving. So on the 20th of April, you're going to have a certain pot of cash, and you can make the decision to delay a decision to send
workers
employees home. Exactly. So on the 20th of April, there's another injection of cash into businesses. These businesses don't opt to cut salaries or send people home. They move us along 1 more month. So if you can see the way the dates are coinciding, I think that, and very speculating,
Yeah.
this is meant to kick the can down the road 1 month. And if you are optimistic like me, COVID-19, the worst is averted. Everybody goes back to work in May, and we have somehow managed to move the country along without causing a complete shutdown.
Do you
so
actually
you can
think
look at
that
it that
what
way.
you're saying is actually realistic?
I think that you have to. It is realistic, City. I think that if I look at it from purely a tax point of view, I'm not an economist.
Yeah.
These are real considerations that people are making. And someone told me yesterday evening after these things were announced that they were going to have an extra 2 million shillings, and they were not going to send people home in April. They might think about it in May. So I think very realistic. I think that someone has put a little thought into this. Like I said, I think that it can only be a kicking the can down the road. If this thing goes on for a long time, then perhaps this may not be enough.
By realistic, what I actually meant was, do you see it being implemented?
So the last year, towards the end of last year, the president announced that there would be an accelerated payment of VAT refunds.
Yep.
It did happen. There was a lot of VAT refunds that were paid. So I think that it can happen.
Pending bills has been a conversation since mid last year.
Yeah.
The fact that we're still talking about paying the pending bills to the tune of 10 billion shillings or so, it means that they still haven't paid cleared those bills.
Yes. To a large extent, I think I've not had a consensus that there's been action in that respect.
Yep.
But maybe this will be the time.
Also,
I think I saw a little bit of seriousness in the president's eyes yesterday.
When the president speaks, there's always seriousness in his eyes. In fact, it's not just seriousness, there's earnestness in his voice.
I think yesterday, me as a tax practitioner, my spirits were quite lifted.
Edward, the questions are coming in terms of, these measures that have then now been announced or put in place for rollout. Is it enough? And should more have been done, or should other sectors have been paid attention to with the situation as we see it in the country and the way the economy has been for the last few months? Is more possible?
The thing is that I'm not looking at it from a sector perspective, because like I said, I think the idea was, how do you inject money into the economy quickly? And when you inject money into the economy, it touches everybody. Because, if you look at the analogy of, say, a flower farm receiving X some billion shillings, how they'll behave, they'll touch everybody. They'll give money to the workers will spend in all sectors. They'll use borders, they'll buy meat, and so on and so forth. So I think that we don't look at it from a sector perspective, we look at it from the impact. Now, is it enough impact? I think that depends on how long this thing is going to drag out. Because if you count the money, so we need to count the money. 10 billion shillings in refunds, 10 billion shillings in to the elderly, assuming that it can go quickly.
Yep.
A few billion shillings in paid bills, pending bills, say another 10, that's 30.
Yeah.
The corporate tax reduction of 5%, though I say this is long term. I was looking at some statistics and I saw that there was a collection of about 300 billion shillings in corporate tax in 2018. If you do a linear analysis, if you use a 25% rate, it's a 50 billion. So you count 50 plus those 30, you're talking an injection of 80 billion. When I've been looking at opinions and so on, people are talking about 70 billion, 100 billion. So I think that theoretically, the numbers are there to move us along. Okay? The numbers are there to move us along. Whether it's enough depends on how long this thing drags out. Because I think that if it does get finished, the economy will bounce back.
So
there are no
another pressing
there are no
issue.
fundamentals to keep the economy down.
The economy you're referring to is the Kenyan economy before the coronavirus, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, and what was it going to bounce back to?
No, so what I mean by the economy will bounce back, for example, in the sector that I'm in, so I'm a tax advisor. There's people who come to me when they want to invest and so on and so on. These people are not investing now, not because there's a fundamental in the economy that will make their project less viable, but because they physically can't. So they are waiting. This thing gets finished. They come back. Now, when they come back, they're going to hire me. They'll pay me fees. So
Then you
So
can,
I think that
you can pay your workers and such.
and then I can pay my workers. So I'm eagerly waiting for this thing to get finished in 2 weeks so I can advise on that project. So that's what I mean.
Right.
If you look at agriculture, there's been good rains. So there's probably, a say for the locust. But there's maize and there's wheat. And so people are waiting for this thing to go away, and they go back to the factory and start milling.
2 questions for you, Edward. From a Mwananchi perspective, we are talking about impact. We've proposed VAT moves from 16 to 14%.
Yes.
Am I going to feel that impact now as a consumer, or when does this impact come in place? And what am I looking at? Is the fuel going to go down?
How does it translate?
How does it translate to the mama mboga and the boda guy and that laundry lady of mine that comes to my house? What are the tangible impacts of this, for example?
Yeah, so this kind of numbers, if you look at it at your very micro level, you will not feel the impact. And this is not what it's meant to do. I think that this is meant to, VAT cuts across very widely in the economy. The incremental impact from everybody makes for a large impact collectively. So 2% worth of VAT, what it will do, it will make your electricity bill a little bit cheaper, your fuel bill a little bit cheaper. It's a haba kind of theory.
Yeah.
You will not feel it too much, but the miller, the manufacturer, the cement factory will feel it in a big way because of the electricity bill goes down.
So a big chunk of the population then, Edward, is going to feel that this has addressed as a club, an elite club, the big Wadosi. Basically, this is our Wadosi measures, because if they're not going to feel the impact of it directly, comparing to what other countries are doing, they're putting direct cash, sending M-Pesa to people's phones.
Yeah. I think that to have that kind of interpretation, Eric, because one of the things that I didn't speak about that I can say now is that you guys sitting on that table still have your jobs. You're in this next month, you're going to experience a 10,000 shillings more in your pocket. But the small person, this 5% doesn't make a big difference.
Yeah.
And I think that is why this other measure, turnover tax, going down 3% to 1%, this is what I think it's meant to do, because I don't think that this one will do anything to the economy, but it's a signaling effect. We've been struggling with, and saying this tax is going to hurt the small people and so on. Now, the small people have something.
Yeah.
They have 1%.
Yeah.
It's just optics.
But you're saying it's good optics.
Lip service
To show that something was done or something was considered.
Good optics. It's good optics because I think that the ones that have been done that impact the big corporates are good for the economy for the reasons that I already said, but they're bad. They're not very good optics. So add something that is also good optics, and you balance the picture.
Okay. So listening to you, Edward, you're looking at this as a temporary measure, and you've rightly said so, maybe for a month. But this thing, looking at it and seeing what has happened in China, in Europe, in the US, we are looking at a minimum of 3 months of pandemic, at least before you have things under control. What should be, or what would you propose is the next steps after that 1 month? Because realistically speaking about it, I don't think in another 1 month we'll be out of the woods yet.
I think that if we go another month or two, it will be time for the economics team at Treasury to sit down and think about a cash transfer.
Shouldn't that
But
Thinking doesn't require actual money to be there for you to think and plan, does it?
They can start thinking now.
They can think now.
and I'm a little more optimistic I think that they have thought about it because you can see how they are behaving. They're injecting money into the economy. That's what they're trying to do. And I think that they will, and it makes sense if you're a policy maker, you do things progressively. You start with some measures, then you go to more drastic ones. So I would think that they may have this in their plan.
In 2 months' time, the government will not have money. It will have
Again.
paid 10 billion shillings to the elderly. It will have given back 10 billion shillings to VAT refunds. It will have spent all the money and not receiving as much because now 24,000 guys are not paying payee. In the level of taxes have reduced.
In 2 months' time, you can see that when the governor of the central bank spoke the other day, he said that they have also contacted the World Bank, they've contacted the IMF, they're going to get some money, then put some of it directly into health. They did not say what they're going to do with the rest of it. So in 2 months' time, it's probably the time it takes to process an emergency.
We'll have a windfall of cash.
Not necessarily.
No. Probably.
Maybe the government mentioned this and I missed it. It's very likely I missed it. But did the government have a discussion with the people we owe money to sort of like effect a moratorium so that we don't actually have to pay this 60 billion or whatever huge amount we pay in terms of the loans that we owe? Have we had such a conversation?
None that we know of.
No. So I don't think that those conversations are happening in public. But I would imagine that all these cards should be on the table. So you talk about fiscal policy tools, you talk about the investment instruments, you talk about loans, you talk about deferring, our obligations.
Under the circumstances, it would be very easy to understand, wouldn't it?
If I was, it depends on where you're sitting. But if you're a government,
It's from where I'm sitting,
should be
actually.
something. And most of us in business are also thinking like that. We are thinking about negotiating with our landlords.
Yes.
We are thinking all sorts of options.
Yes, and landlords are listening. Banks are supposedly listening.
Everyone is
We have
listening.
individuals taking action. Big lenders would listen more than anything else because if you insist, then you'll get to a point where these people might never ever be able to pay you again ever.
And I think that, look, like I said, I'm a little more optimistic. I believe that this discussion is going on, only that it's not in the public, because if it were not, I'd be very worried.
Edward, can I ask you what fuels your optimism? Because it would be interesting to know what are some of the things that you're seeing that perhaps other people are not seeing that you would have a positive outlook on this. So could you just give some indications as to what fuels this optimism that you have?
So when I talk to my clients, the business people who talk to me about taxes, I think most people are looking at this as 2-3 months setback, and everything goes back to normal. Like I said, because there are no fundamental. In other times when they say post-election violence, you can say that the world has lost confidence in Kenya, and before they get that confidence back,
Takes a while.
It takes a while. But this is not the situation we are talking about now. This is a situation where we are physically stopped from carrying on economic activity. And when we are then able to, I feel that there will be this pent-up energy that, will start producing quickly. And in fact, the reverse would happen, where foreigners are afraid of coming to the country because of political uncertainty. Now they are not afraid. They are probably more afraid of being in their own countries because people have been ravaged. The workforce, those kind of factors, they start thinking internationally.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping, by the way, and the doctor is there on your show, I'm hoping that we'll have a story for Africa where, or for Kenya, where we'll have very little deaths. It will be proven that we have very good immunity because we are used to dealing with malaria and mosquitoes and so on. And that then it will look like a very viable option to
invest here.
To do
Edward,
to do
Edward, I like your optimism, really, but it's called magic thinking.
Edward, remember at the beginning of this pandemic, people are like, no, this thing cannot
It
survive
can't.
in Africa. Blacks
Here
cannot
we
get
are.
it. Here we are. So I think
No, I shouldn't go into the health.
No. Look, even when you talked about your clients whom you talk to. When they make these prophetic predictions, is this in consultation with medical experts, or is this again just wishful thinking that they hope and they
Or a
wish and they
hunch.
think? Yes.
It's faith.
No, so City, I don't get the doom and gloom kind of.
No. It's called reality, my brother. No, not doom and gloom. Just reality. Just reality. The
truth of the matter.
one of the things we cannot do with this particular virus, because it is new, you actually can't even tell how long it's going to be with us. You cannot,
No,
because we don't know.
Maybe here for a year, for all we know.
It may be here for even 2 years. We don't know. If you're talking about a situation where we have knowledge, this is where you have knowledge piecemeal. Something is figured out, we are told. It's new. We don't know.
We are learning along the way.
As we go along.
As we go along,
Yeah.
something new is coming up. And even as late as yesterday, WHO is telling people we are not yet out of the woods, because if you open schools, for example, what if there is a resurgence because another part of the world is not yet out of the woods? So here we're in a situation where the reality is...
It's reality from one side, but also we haven't reached there yet.
No, it isn't reality from
I
one side,
think
Eric.
that,
This is an epidemic,
yeah.
It is.
and epidemics are understood from the knowledge of what has been acquired.
China has dealt with it in 3 months. They're opening up their economy again.
Eric,
They're not out of the woods yet.
Eric, there's a second phase to these things that no one is talking about.
It hasn't come yet, so you
It
don't
doesn't-
know.
We don't have
I
to
think
wait
that,
for it.
You do not know.
Eric,
We're in
this
the middle of the
attitude
world
is what
is-
people had, and that's why
And that's
Italy is
why we're
where
in the
it is.
situation that we are
That's
in
why
now.
France is where they are. That is why
Because-
Britain is where they
because
are.
that attitude of it
Second
hasn't
wave
gotten
is not
here,
a
we don't have
reality.
to deal with it. It's a
I think that
possibility. It's a possibility,
that,
and
guys-
things that become realities start off as possibilities.
Yeah.
Right?
Anything is possible. It's possible that there can be a second wave. It's possible there cannot be. There will not be a second wave.
You know,
I think that business people do their modeling based on what they know. And this part that you're talking about, this unknown part that you're talking about, it's even you have to admit that it's a speculation. You're speculating that
No,
it
not
will
entirely.
go on.
Really. It's not speculation. It's not speculation at all. I
But
mean,
you don't know. You've said the city that you don't know.
yes. What if what
don't
we
know
know is
whether-
alarming? How more alarming is what we don't know?
Yeah, so I think that perhaps the time will come when people will adjust their projections, and obviously sane business people do that. At the moment, this is what I'm hearing.
my final question to you, Edward. With these measures that have been put in place as temporary, do you see a situation where they are clawed back? Because they say once you've given somebody a piece of meat, you don't go again and remove it from their mouth. Do you see a situation where, let's say we are out of the woods, now we are doing
They go
well,
back to 16%.
that the government now reverts us back to the dark days, if I may call it such?
Yeah, so it's very good tax policy to have lower tax rates that apply widely.
Yes.
So my hope is that this is a move to that direction in any event, so that then we don't go back to having a 30% tax rate and moving VAT up. Rather, what you do, you stay there and start removing perhaps a few more exemptions here or there that don't have an impact to the economy.